some great folks sharing their expertise, what Tucson Audubon is doing, hearing from Laura Erickson, and just have a wonderful time together, have some time to share some thoughts about what birds mean to us this year in 2020. I'm also going to be recording this, so you might see a little record button up on your top left. I'll be sending this out to folks later this afternoon, so if you want to watch back later on, you're more than welcome to do that. And for maybe some people who aren't able to join us this afternoon. So, I also want to introduce myself. My name is Luke Safford. I work for Tucson Audubon, coordinate our volunteer program, our engagement opportunities here through Zoom and on our field trips, the Southeast Arizona Birding Festival, lots of different stuff. You know, Tucson Audubon's mission is to inspire people to protect and enjoy birds. And so that's why we do all these different things. All of us are, all the people that you hear from today are probably more than happy to talk with you about what Tucson Audubon is up to and how you can get involved. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us about any of those things. Many of you are members, and so you're already like really involved. So thank you a big time to all of you for all the hours you put in volunteering, all the resources you give, both financially and time-wise and knowledge and everything that you bring to this community, and appreciate you being here. Also, you know, while you all are on mute, it's also really important to be able to interact during this time when people are presenting. You can do that by using the chat function, which is down below. I'm on a laptop, and down below on the screen, there's a little thought bubble icon that says chat underneath of that. You just click on that, it'll bring up a chat box, and you can type in a message, a question, or maybe an insight that you have and put that in there and press enter. That'll go out to everyone. There's a couple of people who will be monitoring that chat box as we go on. So if there's a question, we can get to that question at some point, hopefully. But just use that. I think it's, you know, sometimes the little chat thing comes up and maybe annoys us a little bit when we see the chat bubble come up, but I think it's good because we want to be able to have this interaction, this social interaction that, you know, is just kind of hard to come by these days. So we can put up with the little annoying red thing that comes up to be able to interact with people. I think that's worth it. So just be aware of that. And then also remember, keep yourself on mute. That would be a positive thing. And before we go any further, I'd really like to thank Splendido at Rancho Vistoso. And Splendido is one of our awesome sponsors. They sponsor our festival, our volunteer program. I'll bet you that if we were able to get together, they would be bringing in some awesome food for us today. That's not happening, but what we do have is we have Nancy Boyle. She's their community relations manager. And I'd like to introduce Nancy to share a little bit about Splendido and their partnership with us. Nancy, are you on with us?
I am. Thank you so much, Luke. Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. Thanks for including me in your winter roost. If you haven't seen or heard of Splendido, you can think of us as the Ritz-Carlton of retirement living, located right in Oro Valley. We've been a proud partner of the Tucson Audubon Society for the past 2 years, and we're looking forward to continuing our support in person when it's safe to do so. And you're right, Luke, had this been non-COVID, we probably would have been doing some catering and everybody could have gotten a taste of Chef Masood's food. But we want to continue to support all of you and our bird lovers at Splendido. And so I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we have a short video that should give you a better sense of what we're all about. So enjoy your event today. more thing before you start, Luke. We are open. We are having tours of our beautiful new villa models. So you can come with a mask, and we do check your temperature, but wanted to let you know we're open and our new villas are finished. Enjoy.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nancy. Wish I could see you in person. It's been a little while, but if you're going on one of the Mason Center field trips that's coming up, Nancy will probably be there to give you some hand sanitizer, courtesy of Splendido. So that's where you can see her too. So I want to introduce Jonathan Lutz, our executive director. He's going to lead us into our time of presentations, and I just want to thank him for his leadership during this very strange year. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Luke, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. First, or not the first, but one of many thank yous that you'll hear from us today, because honestly, as I'm sitting here in my dining room at home, my converted office, it gets a little lonely, and we have a growing staff and a growing community of supporters like you, and anytime and any way that we can get together and celebrate birds and the mission of Tucson Audubon, it's just a real boost. So sincere thanks for spending your time with us today. Almost 15 years of doing Audubon work now. I'm really used to the potluck vibe. So I'm gonna, just for this little portion here, change my background for you and have a little bit of spirit of the potluck going on. I'm going to talk briefly this afternoon. We can get on to more interesting and scintillating topics, but just give you a little insight about how we progressed through the COVID-19 crisis that we're still in today. So Matt, you can go ahead and click for me. So just a little summary, and Matt, we can run through these pretty quickly. Tucson Audubon facilities and our nature shops closed mid-March, and you can see how this progressed. This was all in 1 week. The patent center switching staff to work from home, making sure that our field-based crews could still get out on the landscape. One thing that occurred to us was very obvious right away was the ecology and the opportunity to go out and do things like count birds and greet birds in their arrival for nesting season with nest boxes, get out and pull invasive species. None of that stuff was slowing down as a result of COVID-19. So it became really important for us to prioritize developing protocols for our field-based staff to get into the field and do the important work that they do for us. We've been fairly successful in doing that. Concurrent with sorting everybody out, we immediately launched into an emergency fund campaign before the end of March. And the response to the campaign, before we knew anything about federal funding or how our other campaigns like Birdathon, the Summer Appeal would perform, the response to the emergency fund was overwhelming in the tens of thousands of dollars. So we're very grateful for those of you and others who responded early and gave us the reassurance that Tucson Audubon would survive COVID-19 despite all of the major changes that we've had to make. I want to say just a quick note and a tip of the hat back to my friend Luke Safford. We pivoted. Pivot might be the word of the year, or in the top 10 at least, but we pivoted to virtual programming, as you can see here, pretty quickly, April 13th. So that is less than a month after the concern and the response to COVID-19 had to really kick off. So I'm extremely proud of the team for doing this. It wasn't without stress and anxiety and needing to sort through all of the different options that existed at the time for this video conference format. But we arrived on Zoom, we stuck with it, and Luke and the rest of the team really really made it their own and took it off to the point where other Audubon chapters and organizations were asking us, how did you do it? So it was a real pleasure to be leading and helping our community of Audubon chapters along the way, while giving you the opportunity to stay connected. Many of you have heard about this payroll protection program that came out in the middle of the summer as a program of the Small Business Administration, the federal government, and Tucson Audubon was at the lead of the pack and working with our bank to apply for one of these loans. We received $223,000 that essentially was to be used over a 3-month period for a very limited set of things. And we ended up applying it all to, I believe, 100% to payroll. And honestly, we've had a successful year, but at that point in the year, you're so uncertain about how campaigns are going to do, how we're going to generate money from programs, and what our community is going to be able to do with the uncertainty related to COVID-19. So the PPP loan was hugely important for us, and ensured that we would be able to maintain all of our staff as well as keep everybody compensated at the same levels. So let's take a quick glance at revenue and expenses here. Matt, you can click again for me. The good news is that overall our revenues are up. So looking through 3 quarters of this year, if you combine our grants and agreements and contracts, most of these are with agencies. We're well above how we were performing in 2019, and this was planned. So a lot of the response that we've had to COVID-19 was a result of thoughtful, intentional preparation back in 2019. So these items were a part of our budget, and the result is the expansion of our landscape scale habitat restoration work has just been enormous, and others are starting to recognize that. We continue to have a new fruitful relationship with the National Forest Foundation. That's the foundation arm of the U.S. Forest Service. Merchandise sales. So down slightly when we compare to our 2019 figures, but we're actually tracking pretty close to what we had budgeted for 2020. So just take a pause and think about that. As you know, our nature shop has been closed for a long period of time in 2020, closed or at reduced services. So right now we're closed. You can make an appointment to come and shop, but we're just allowing one person at a time in the shop to be able to do some holiday shopping. Where we were prepared for this situation, and I want to give a lot of kudos to Debbie Honan, our shop manager, is we're already prepared at the end of 2019 to expand our online retail presence. And if you were able to visit the shop today, you would see there's a stack of 50 packages waiting to go out with USPS, and the response to the online store has been tremendous. When we combine our membership income, our program income, and our contributions through 3 quarters of this year, we are very close to how we performed in 2019. And again, keep this in mind, we haven't had in-person programming, and we didn't have a birding festival. So a lot of the traditional ways that we earn income through programs haven't been available to us, yet we're very close to where we were in 2019 when all of these things are combined. So again, kudos and thank you for your support as members, as program participants, and donors to the organization. You can go ahead, Matt. And yeah, there we go. So looking at expenses then, you know, what you want to do in these situations is try to maintain as much of your planned revenue as possible and try to reduce expenses to the extent possible without having to cut staff or reduce compensation or benefits. And we've been able to do that. So some of these things are natural. We haven't been traveling as much, so our travel expenses are lower. We did have a vacancy in our staff before COVID-19, so we haven't refilled that, and that's helped us save a little bit here and there on wages. materials and supplies. Since we're not out there with you doing as much, our expenses there are lower. And overall, the operation is just much more lean in the way that it's performing. And you can go ahead, Matt. I think there's one more on this page. I don't know if it's just slow there. Matt, can you click one more time if you can hear me? There we go. So just transitioning now to the Patent Center, and I'm calling this the Patent Center for All to remind me that, you know, in addition to existing in a pandemic and running the organization with all these health concerns, we're also in the midst of, you know, a social and probably a social political revolution, a lot of change. And we're going to hear a little bit later on about the inclusion, diversity, and equity work that Tucson Audubon is doing. But we're really trying to incorporate what we call IDEA, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access into every element of Tucson Audubon going forward. We've had discussions about how do we make sure this work doesn't overcome our mission or vice versa. Well, what we've come to realize is that these things are actually one and the same. Tucson Audubon can't inspire people to protect and enjoy birds if we're not making an effort to inspire all people. And this will manifest at the Patent Center and continue to manifest. Right now, as you know, the property is closed. In this picture, I just had to, I think this is Tom Brown's picture, had to show just so you could see that, you know, people kept coming, and it's because of birds like the plain-capped starthroat. This is Thor Manson's photograph. And we've been fortunate to have our contractor, birder in residence, Louis Dombrowski, at the property for the majority of the year. We did have some staff filling in for him. So thank you, restoration crew and Howard Buchanan, for being there for us in Louis' absence. And newsflash, Louis is going to be with us through the spring. So if you haven't had a chance to meet him yet, after reading his profile in the magazine, we'll make sure you get a chance to do that. We've taken the opportunity to do some preventative and deferred maintenance. We had some invasive trees on the property that we wanted to take out. And then there's a series of trees along the fence line here that unfortunately had disease and were going to need to be taken down. And it's a good thing we took them down. This was actually yesterday, because looking at the core of these trees, they were actually further along in the disease stage than we anticipated. So going to need to come down sooner or later, and we'll be replacing these with native trees and vegetation like we've been doing across the property since 2014. You can go ahead, Matt. And well, there we go. Yeah, so I thought it was going to be a positive thing. Consequence of being closed, of course, we generate you know, over $20,000 a year in what we call passive donations, just people dropping goodwill into the sugar fund there at the Patent Center site. So being closed has hurt. We know that everybody on the other side of the screen here is eager to get back to the Patent Center. We've had a lot of folks disappointed that they can't come and visit. But we share that disappointment, we share the hurt there, and we're looking forward to hosting people again when it's safe to do so. So a lot of our decision making related to the you know, the small community there in Patagonia, the close quarters at the Patent Center itself, and also for our staff and volunteers who help keep the site going and our desire to keep everybody safe and healthy. So thank you for your patience. And we can go on, Matt. There we go. So the next big thing, and I guess it's always been the big thing for the last few years, is in trying to create a Patent Center for All, we are still in the process of the planning and designing and seeking permission work for replacing the main patent home, which as it was determined in about 2015 is in too poor of a condition to reasonably upgrade and also to comply with the floodway restrictions that we have there at the site. The entire property is in the floodway, which makes everything incredibly more difficult and ultimately more expensive. But we've been doing a lot of planning. We've had quite a bit of floodway engineering study completed. The town of Patagonia has approved Tucson Audubon's request for a change of use for the property to go from residential to multiple use. That's an important change for us to make. And the results of some of the work is that we know this building is going to be above ground plane, higher than the buildings that you see there now. And again, that's so that we are not causing any undue rise in water level if and when there is a major flood event. And the property has flooded in the past and has come very close to flooding in the time that Tucson Audubon has owned it. So this is a very important thing. So expect to see pilings, not shown necessarily in this rendering, but ramps. We want the property to be as fully accessible for mobility challenge visitors as possible, and observation decks. So really thinking of the Sonoyta Creek riparian zone as an amphitheater for viewing birds, and just building on the tradition of backyard bird viewing that it's so well known for. So a lot of challenges remain. This rendering shows something that is probably larger than what we'll actually end up building in that relatively small space. But we have some priorities, including public restrooms. Some of you might be happy to hear that. I know I am. And we're going to prioritize the components of the project and make sure that we get it right and are able to accommodate and continue the tradition of bird viewing there. We are looking at a couple different types of building, including prefabrication of certain components and even modular buildings. And there are a lot of creative solutions out there. So we're excited to unveil that once we have some decisions made. And we will ultimately need the permission of the town of Patagonia and Santa Cruz County to build in this floodway. All the indications we've been given so far through the dialogue with decision makers have been really, really positive. So we're excited to be moving into this next phase of architecture, determining what our design is going to be, and also what the engineering is going to be to make it happen and not negatively impact this floodway. So thank you for your patience. This is probably going to continue to take us a while, but many of you have contributed to the capital campaign and made donations to the Patton Center over the years. So you have really made this possible, and we appreciate that support as well as the patience as we move into these next stages. And I think that is my my segue, Matt. If you click again, pretty sure I am now introducing Carrie Hackney. Carrie is our restoration project manager. She's been on board with us now for a handful of years, have gone from part-time to full-time, and we're just really thrilled with all the work that Carrie does, including her leadership on our work with IDEA, which is Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access. So without further ado, Carrie Hackney.
Thank you, Lutz, and I love Patton Center for All. That's great. The beauty and value of diversity is ingrained in us as birders, bird appreciators, or general outdoor enthusiasts. We value the inherent beauty in birds because of their different colors, their various flight patterns, and the individual adaptation each species has made to survive. We recognize the value of each individual bird and their role in our local ecosystem, and understand that without them, a balance is lost. At Tucson Audubon, our mission is to inspire people to enjoy and protect birds. This year, we came to understand how short we had fallen in our aims, that we weren't inspiring all people to enjoy and protect birds. Earlier this year, a Black birder named Christian Cooper was a target of racial discrimination while birding in Central Park. This incident made national headlines and brought to light the significant barriers and dangers that people of color face in their pursuit of birding, barriers that many of us have long had the privilege to ignore. We spent time listening during Black Birders Week in an attempt to understand what it's like to not feel safe, welcomed, or part of this greater community while pursuing an activity we often don't think twice about. We listen to how striving to achieve the appearance of an inclusive organization on the surface alone does greater harm to the communities and individuals we claim to serve. This is a conversation that we will continue as Karina Newsom, one of the leaders of the movement, will be joining us for Birdathon for our kickoff in April. At Tucson Audubon Society, and as leaders in the conservation and birding world, we owe it to our community in Southeast Arizona to listen, identify, and break down these barriers so that people of color, people with mobility challenges, for our Indigenous neighbors, for members of the LGBTQ community, for anyone and everyone, so that we may inspire all people to protect and enjoy birds alongside us, that everyone may have the same freedom to enjoy spending time in the outdoors in our beautiful Sonoran Desert. We also need allies to help tackle the greatest environmental challenges of our lifetime, such as climate change. We recognize that the crises that face birds and the environment are the same crises that face people. We cannot effectively address habitat loss or climate change without addressing the issues of human injustice and inequity as a significant factor in each of these. To begin this work, we have assembled an IDEA team, inclusion, equity, diversity, and access, to guide our efforts with the goal of creating an organizational culture that is committed to IDEA values and actively removing barriers to participation. We have hired equity, diversity, and inclusion consultants from Raglan and Wilhite. They have been a huge help and wonderful in this process. And they are helping us to facilitate the best evolution of this process. We are undergoing this process with self-reflection, humility, willingness to learn, and a passion for equity. We understand this to be a long-term journey, but are committed to taking the initial steps so that we may better serve all of Southeast Arizona. We are proud to report that we have actively begun to remove barriers for participation for people with mobility challenges. Inspired by the efforts of Birdability founder Virginia Rose, we have begun our own Birdability initiative at Tucson Audubon. Birdability focuses on removing barriers to access for birders with mobility challenges, blindness or low vision, intellectual or developmental disabilities, including autism, mental illness, being deaf or hard of hearing, or other health concerns. In partnership with Southern Arizona Adaptive Boards, we now regularly provide birdability field trips to Sweetwater wetlands, and we have future trips planned to Madera Canyon. We'd like to recognize the efforts on behalf of Tucson Audubon member and ally, Mia Hansen, for being a wonderful partner and her role as Executive Director of Southern Arizona Adaptive Sports. Our members are both a reflection and an extension of our organization. So it brings us much joy to have friends dedicated to making birding a pursuit for all. We welcome your involvement as well, and we can be contacted at idea@tucsonaudubon.org. And we are also available anytime if you would like to know more about our IDEA commitment. Thank you. And then I will be passing my torch to Jenny McFarland, our wonderful bird conservation biologist, who will be talking about vulnerable species and purple martins.
Thank you, Carrie. That was great. All right. So when you go to the next slide, Matt. So we've done a lot of work over the years with bird surveys of many types of species, with an emphasis on vulnerable species and priority species for this region and for larger conservation goals. And this summer we launched a new program, the Desert Purple Martin Project, which is also known with the Latin subspecies name of Hesperia. Go ahead, next slide, Matt. These are really very, very, very cool birds. They are they nest in saguaros, and they are a recognized separate subspecies. Matt, next slide. And they are pretty cool. They nest in saguaros.
Jenny, just so you know, there's a lag. There's a lag between when Matt does it. So
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, that's okay. That's no problem. So They're really very, very cool birds. So this little map in the center shows the subspecies map of the species for purple martin. So there are 3 distinct subspecies, and this map is from the National Geographic Field Guide, which is really the best one if you want to see maps of various, many different subspecies of larger species. Now the eastern subspecies, the Subis one, is quite well known to many people. They live in these, they will nest in these artificial nest boxes. It gets quite specialized. People get all sorts of setups with gourds and colonies, and it's really a beloved pastime of people to have these colonies on their property. And a setup like this, you can lower the whole thing, look inside the nest boxes, record what's going on, and then elevate the entire colony again. So it's pretty special to see what's going on, and it's really something that people really very much enjoy. But there are 2 much lesser known subspecies that occur in North America, and Arbicola is the one in the upper right, so in the sort of the Pacific Northwest, as well as in the northern region of Arizona. So these are sort of a forest dwelling purple martin that nests wild, where they'll use woodpecker cavities or other cavities in trees. So like in northern Arizona, you can find them in ponderosa forest. And then there's a third, the least known of the 3 subspecies, which is Hesperia, which is the desert purple martin, and one that nests in woodpecker cavities of saguaros. So go ahead and advance to the next slide, Matt. And that's the one that we spent quite a lot of time working on this summer. And it really cannot be emphasized enough how little known this subspecies is. So even basic information hasn't been recorded about these birds. So when we launched the project this summer, there was a lot of challenges. We had to look inside of nests in saguaros, which can be very, very high from the ground. So that's a photo of me on the left with a very long pole and a Bluetooth endoscope camera that connected to my smartphone to look inside of nesting cavities. And the photo on the right is Olia trying to look in a nesting cavity about as high as those poles can extend, really trying to look inside that nesting cavity. So go ahead and go to the next slide, Matt. And you can see we had some challenges also with, that's a photo of cryptobiotic soil in the top center. And we were really careful not to damage or impact that soil. And these are some of the photos that we saw inside of the saguaros. So this technology really is very, very cool. We could use these small lightweight cameras attached to long painter's poles that could extend quite tall and look inside and see what's going on inside these nests. And it was really a very special thing that we were able to do. And this is something we're looking to expand dramatically next year and have more cameras available for volunteers to utilize, because it's very difficult to know what's going on inside the nest unless you can actually look inside. So go ahead and advance to the next one, Matt. And we can see different stages. Top left is a mother with eggs and then little pinkies. All right, so this is a video. Let's see if it'll play. This is a video of one particular saguaro. It's sort of the life cycle of this summer. So it's this particular saguaro in Saguaro Park East. And first the parents are trying to chase me off from the saguaro as someone coming to look in. And then here's the mother with her eggs, and then just the eggs. So 3 eggs in this nest. And then we went back on August 6th, and there was 3 chicks. And we'd wait till the parents left to try to get video or images of what was going on inside. And we came back later in August, and there was on August 17th, and there was 3 really nicely feathered babies. So this nesting did seem like all 3 eggs got up to very mature chicks that hopefully fledged safely. So that was pretty great to be able to peek inside these nests and really get a really close look at what's going on. Go ahead to the next slide, Matt. And so this is a map of one of the many outputs we created from this pilot year of this Desert Purple Martin project. And you can see a lot more data on the Arizona IBA website if you'd like, as well as on the Tucson Audubon website. But this is one such example. It's an interactive map showing where the 2 staff members who worked on this summer and many volunteers found active nests. So the little saguaro icons are nests found in the Tucson area, east and west of Tucson. north, and then of course down into the south, because these birds go down into Sahuarita and Green Valley as well. And we're looking to expand our research area for next summer. But notably, these birds don't nest very frequently up in the Phoenix area, quite rare up there. So this is a bird restricted to Sonoran Desert for nesting, with columnar cacti like saguaros in Arizona Sonoran Desert, as well as cardones down in extreme northwest Mexico and Baja. But it has to be really lush Sonoran Desert, and apparently much of the desert up in Phoenix they don't find suitable because they don't really nest up there. Go ahead to the next slide, Matt. So we were able to identify both nesting saguaros as well as areas where they were gathering and roosting. And for a pilot study, we got some pretty good data where we were able to get some initial sort of data on what direction the nesting holes that they choose face. It seems to be anywhere from southwest to northwest is the majority. And then the average height of those nests. And all this information is relatively unknown up till now. So this has been quite a fun sort of scientific endeavor as well. And we had one nest at 9 foot and 10 feet, but the majority were at 15 to 20 feet. So that was really interesting to find out. For martins, it really does seem like they prefer to stay as far away from predators as possible. All right, go ahead to the next slide, Matt. And it's been really rewarding to do this project because we were able to form a really wonderful partnership. Tucson Audubon this year is a founding member of the new Purple Martin Working Group, where many experts and organizations with a great interest in purple martins sort of nationwide, we all came together to pool our resources and knowledge to work on discovering more about these desert purple martins, because they are just the most mysterious of the 3 subspecies. So our work was featured this in the most current issue of the Purple Martin Update, which is the magazine of the Purple Martin Conservation Association. And I'd be willing to bet that many people who receive this in their inbox, in their mailbox, are going to be East Coast birders who may have never even heard of desert purple martins. So I hope this article was really fun for them. And we have some really great partners that we're working with, one of which is the Disney Conservation Fund. We're working with NAU to do some really cool lab analysis on feathers that we gathered from desert purple martins. There's a lot of just great lab analysis that can happen with this little known subspecies. We had support from the Arizona Bird Conservation Initiative through the IBA program. University of Manitoba gave us, Kevin Fraser, the professor there, gave us a huge amount of guidance and help. And hopefully we'll be working with these folks even more closely in the future as we expand the Desert Purple Martin project. It was for a pilot year, it was a huge success. Many people helped and did such a great job helping us to gather information about these really, really cool birds. They're incredibly charismatic. And if you have never been here in the monsoon season, I suggest you come and visit them, because they're really cool birds hanging out in their saguaros. They're really, it was such fun working with them this summer. So up next, we do have the Invasive Plant Strike Team Crew Lead, Tony Figueroa, and Director of Conservation and Research, Jonathan Horst, and they'll be talking about plant strike teams.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tony Figueroa. I imagine I haven't met any of you. Our program is the newest branch of the organization. We started our operations in the beginning of this year in January, after a lot of groundwork was put in place by Jonathan Horst. So thank him very much for getting this going. We are the invasive plant strike team, but why are we here? The invasive non-native plants in our area are spreading like wildfire and causing wildfire. So plant treatment of non-natives may be one of the most critical and effective means of protecting habitat long-term for our region and benefiting the desert and riparian birds by protecting where they live and what they eat. As many of you might know, our birds in this area, 90% of them live or eat or visit riparian corridors on the regular. So that's also where a lot of the invasive plant have been spreading to, and the work needs to be done And here we are, we're ready to start doing the work. Really exciting. So we have two different groups that are operating in the region. The first group was the CAWADIs, which is an acronym for Collaborative Audubon Inventory and Treatment Squad. That's us sitting there on the left inside of a little wash slot canyon. And we work specifically with our federal partners, Saguaro National Park, then also the Southwest Invasive Plant Management Team, which is a National Park Service group, and they treat monuments and national parks throughout Arizona, New Mexico, and then even into Western Texas. In addition to that, we work with the Fish and Wildlife Service in Southern Arizona, and it's been a fantastic start to the project. We're working in areas that are the most critical, important ecological hotspots in the Southwest of the United States. So being able to see these areas and work in them has just really been a blessing. In addition to that, we have the new in-house strike team, which started up in August, and they've been doing work more locally specific in the Tucson region, working with Pima County, and we've also expanded work into Saddlebrook HOA, as is pictured up on the screen. We do extensive mapping of invasive plants because you can't really treat what you don't know is there, and how can you explain to somebody what is changing if they can't really see it on a map. So on the left, it's Saddlebrook. Every point on there is either buffalo grass or fountain grass observations that will be treated in the near future. You can see how it's just expanding all over the golf course areas and south of there. And on the right-hand side, we have a map of Sabino Canyon drainage. We've also been doing work with the Coronado National Forest, surveying all of Sabino Canyon, and now we're starting on Bear Canyon. In addition to this work with the invasive plant mapping, one of the key focuses we have is early detection, rapid response. And what that means is new invasive plants are always coming here, whether they're being brought in by a nursery or somebody driving across the country. They're coming in here. We're seeing it, and as soon as we see it, we're trying to extinguish it. You know, it's just like a little fire. As soon as you see it, you put it out, you stop the forest fire from happening. Of course, buffalo grass was brought in by so many people for so long that has extended its range all over the place, and it takes much more work. So the sooner we can find the next buffalo grass and extinguish it before it spreads is just such a critical part of our mission. So going forward, some of the big projects that we have lined up for us is the Santa Cruz River Hazardous Fuel Management Project, which is the joining of the Santa Cruz River, the confluence of the Santa Cruz, the Rito, and the Canyon del Oro. And it's just a beautiful area, but unfortunately it's become overrun with non-native salt cedar trees, which, if any of you are familiar, just ratty looking trees, and they're not the best forage or anything. I mean, they do provide some cover and nesting, but they're just not the preferred choice of food and nesting for most of our native birds and wildlife. So that's kind of our project, short and sweet. We look forward to continuing to grow. We have 1 year under our belts, and I also want to let people know, you know, sometimes people hear invasive plant management and they think of herbicide and they think of the negative context that that may have. We don't operate on the scale that other big industries do. We walk around, we see the plant, we're all very skilled in plant identification, and we treat the exact plant that we want to treat with the least collateral damage possible. And generally, we're not spraying anything other than the plant we want. We're avoiding hitting the flowers or anything because we don't want to impact any of the pollinators that are coming through. So we're doing it with the best ethics in mind. And I think that's what's really going to set us apart from other invasive plant organizations in the future. So on that, I'd like to end with, if you have observed anything in your neighborhood or HOA, such as invasive plants, and they're just growing footprint in your neighborhood, please reach out to me or anybody that you're familiar with the Tucson Audubon. We would love to try and help combat the spread of invasive plants. And thank you very much for your time, and hope you all have a great holiday. I'll be sending it over to Keith Ashley now, our development director.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. I am going to tell you just a little bit about another innovative project that we began this year, and that is the Free to Fly virtual flyway. As I'm sure you know, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act is an incredibly important piece of legislation that has been enacted for more than 100 years by 5 nations. It protects more than 500 species of migratory birds here in Arizona and more than 800 in our country. Unfortunately, in the last few years, it's come under quite a bit of attack. It's survived to date, but we can only imagine that the pressure to dismantle or weaken it is going to continue. So we sort of scratched our heads and say, well, what could we invest in now that might help people better understand the importance of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and also provide us with a tool that we could leverage when we're meeting with decision makers and legislators at all levels. So what we came up with was creating a virtual flyway. And this will be a story map. A story map is an online platform that allows you to combine quite a few different interactive elements. And ours will have 3 for the virtual flyway. First, we'll have a geographic representation of the migratory bird routes here in Arizona. Think San Pedro River. We'll also have an exploration of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act itself, its history, its power, how we can protect it. And then the most important layer is a piece that you can help us with. And that is, we are trying to gather hundreds of testimonials from our local bird lovers to represent as many species as we can. Think of these as witnessing on behalf of birds. Why do they matter to you? Why do we need to protect each species? Here on the screen, we have a couple of samples, one from Jim Hoagland celebrating sandhill cranes. He notes that he learned that they've been in the fossil record for 2.5 million years. Another from a staff member, Matthew Lutheran, thinking back to how important it's been to him in his life to enjoy turkey vultures here in Arizona on the waterways. We will be entering all of these into the story map. And as you can imagine, it turns into a project with a lot of scope, representing a lot of people. So we've already received quite a few beautiful entries, but we're looking for lots more. If you're interested in submitting, you can contact any of the staff members or check this project out on our website at TucsonAudubon.org virtual flyway. I'm sure somebody can type that into the chat here for us. So thank you very much for everything that you do for Tucson Audubon. This wraps up the portion of hearing from our staff members. And I have the honor now of introducing our guest speaker, Laura Erickson. Laura is a Minnesota birder who was thrilled to be at the Southeast Arizona Birding Festival in 2019 and is promising to come back as soon as the pandemic is over. Since 1986, she has produced a radio show called For the Birds, which is now available as a podcast. just last weekend, I've learned that Laura received the Minnesota Ornithologist Union's Lifetime Achievement Honor, the T.S. Roberts Award. So we're really lucky to have her with us today. She is the author of many books, brand new one that I'm pretty sure would make a great holiday gift. It's called The Love Lives of Birds, bit of a fanciful look at bird romance. One of my favorite books is also Laura, and that is Into the Nest, beautiful exploration of bird parenting. So without further ado, I'll pass things over to Laura. So glad you can be with us.
Well, it was thrilling enough to be invited here before I found out all the cool things you guys have been up to this year. I'm going to be sharing my screen once I get it organized here. For doing my radio show, I've been hearing personally from birders all over the place. I used to be the science editor at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and I know they've been hearing from all kinds of people who'd never paid much attention to birds until they were trapped at home during the pandemic. The New York Times and lots of other newspapers have written articles about the increase in people noticing their birds. The way I've survived the pandemic, I had a heart attack in January. So I'm not only at the old lady spectrum of high vulnerability to COVID, but I had the heart attack. And so I've been very careful, and I've spent most of the year strictly at home. And as harsh as the pandemic has been, it made me think about 4 British soldiers. There was a book written about them. They were prisoners of war in a very frozen prisoner of war camp back in World War II, who each independently found their way path to sanity during that horrifying experience by watching the birds that they could see through their prison camp. Well, the week after my heart attack, before we had much information about the pandemic, one of your Arizona birds turned up in northern Minnesota, a barn owl. So 2020 was seeming like it was going to be a good year. But the very day I went to the Sac-Zim bog to add a barn owl to my St. Louis County list, the poor thing ended up dying at the end of the day. And so that put a shadow over things. The last time I went to the bog in the winter was on what I call Superb Owl Sunday. You just move the bee over, other people are watching football, but I look at superb owls and had this superb one, a little boreal owl. Everybody was so respectful of this little bird. It was right at a feeding station for 10 days, including 2 weekends. And when I was there, there were at least 100 birders. There were over 50 cars pulled over to the side of the road. Everybody stayed on the far side of the road from the bird so that everybody got to see it. And he was totally paying attention to gray jays and boreal chickadees, irritating him while he was trying to look for a rodent on the ground. So he was ignoring us. That same Superb Owl Sunday, I got to see this beautiful bird. And right when we were starting to do social distancing, I went from the barred owl to another bird in his genus, the great gray owl. This one was right in Duluth for over a week, allowing people to take his picture. And birders from all over were emailing me about the birds they were seeing and just how thrilled they were. But after things got really serious for social distancing in March, I started hunkering down at home, paying most attention to my 2 favorite birds on the planet, neither of which are migratory, the black-capped chickadee and the blue jay. And this happened to be a bumper year for both. Neither species nested in my backyard, but three pairs of chickadees and two pairs of blue jays nested near my backyard. And when the babies fledged, I got to watch them right there in my yard and get pictures of baby chickadees, which always look perfect. And the parents are looking more and more bedraggled and pathetic as they chase around, just desperately trying to find food for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 little baby fledglings. You never get to see chickadees sitting side by side like this, except for fledglings with their parent. The bedraggled bird on the right or on the left is the parent, and it just gave food to this baby, and those are two other babies. But it was so fun just getting to pay attention to them and take pictures of them. This picture is not cropped. As I spent my time out in my yard, they were getting to know me as well as I was getting to know them, and I could walk right up and take their pictures. In the fall, I live right under the famous Hawk Ridge Bird Observatory. It's about a half mile as the rough-legged hawk flies, and about 2 miles if you actually have to drive, because you have to go winding around, because you guys know about hills. But 19 blue jays on my feeder. We had an extraordinary blue jay migration, and it was just so thrilling to watch. And I was getting emails from a lot of other people along Lake Superior because we just had an exceptional migration. I even got this little outlier, a partial albino, or that's the word I would have had the correct answer if I'd written this was a partial albino when I took ornithology back in 1976. But people would otherwise call this leucistic. But I've never had an outlier like that at my feeder before. I got some blue jays, my local ones, to learn to come when I whistled, and I would give them a peanut, but they usually had to pose for a picture first. And they were very, very, very cooperative about that. I got to have all kinds of behavioral cool pictures. And also, people for decades have been emailing me or writing me letters asking me about bald blue jays. And back long ago, when I was a wildlife rehabber, one of my 2 permanent blue jays molted all his or her head feathers every fall simultaneously and looked horrible. But I loved that bird so much that I never took a picture at a point in her life cycle where she might have been embarrassed. But this year, one of the parent blue jays that was coming to me for peanuts posed so I could get pictures before and during this bizarre head molt. My other blue jay, of my 2 permanent ones, never molted like this. But every year, the other one did. And this bird's mate did not molt every head feather at once, just piecemeal. So it never looked this horrible. But that's just the way they were. But I finally got pictures of bald blue jays because this one actually sat like that so I could get its picture before I threw it a peanut. And that was like really cool. So you guys get all the hummingbirds, but we do get this one. And I got to spend time trying to get good photographs of ruby-throated hummingbirds. And it was tricky because I was trying to do everything in my yard. This is actually across the street, and my neighbor said she would stay in the house while I came and photographed her ruby-throated hummingbird. But it was just so wonderful getting to take this time. This was at exactly the time that last year I was in Tucson and would have been thrilled getting all my hummingbird pictures from there. But this is also when in August, our ruby-throated hummingbirds are migrating, and some of the flowers are there just to keep them stoked up their metabolic furnaces so they can make it down to the Gulf of Mexico and beyond. There were some mammals around my neighborhood too. These were again across the street. My neighbor called me when the fawns were out, but I also got for the first time to take pictures of one buck while he still had all the velvet on his antlers, and then after the velvet was gone. So that was pretty thrilling. Uh, my neighborhood is mostly deciduous trees with, a few Norway pines, which aren't even Norway spruces around. But so we very seldom get red squirrels. But this year I have one for no particular reason in my backyard who does not go to my bird feeders. He or she, and he will not let me look at the private parts. So I'm not sure which pronoun to use. So I have to call it it. But it's been so fun watching how it carries food in the form of spruce cones and chunks of bracket fungi from my backyard to some secret place somewhere behind my yard. But every now and then it eats them right in front of me and lets me take pictures. I got to forge a special friendship this year with an eastern chipmunk who became so confiding. It not only would come when I whistled to give it peanuts because it noticed me feeding the blue jays, but it started eating on my shoe. And so I took that picture, and it's not cropped, me looking straight down, taking a picture of my foot. I got to try some new things in my backyard because I was stuck here. So I did some things I'd never done before. I bought a Nest Cam, and this was a really cool thing. Blue jays work very hard to get the whole shell off the sunflower seed before they finally get the kernel out. And watch how hard this is working. And it's not getting any food yet. And then all of a sudden, this blue jay comes in, not this one, another one, but it'll be right back and steals what he worked so hard to expose. That was very rude, but I had a little trail cam on my bird feeder that got that whole little movie. I got to watch how a pileated woodpecker drinks, which I just had a trail cam on the ground by my bird bath to see what would happen. Those are white-throated sparrows on the ground and back. We had a really nice sparrow migration this year, and it was thrilling for me to get to watch all these guys. But yeah, he just was drinking and drinking. I had a male and a female who were coming here all the way through April every day, but then they didn't nest in my yard or anywhere near where I could find the nest, but they started coming again in late summer. This was my biggest surprise. One morning, I bring in my little Nest Cam on my platform feeder, and look what I found that I'd had that night. So that was pretty cool. And it was just really fun watching him swivel his head around, or her. Again, wasn't wearing a name tag and was not giving me pronouns. And I also had this friendly little guy. I never could have taken pictures this close. Had to check out the Nest Cam and then just walked away. And at that point, the skunk stripe on my own hair was just about as wide as the stripe on that skunk. My hair color changed thanks to the pandemic. So my using trail cams was a new thing, but I also started recording my backyard birds. This is a Zoom recorder. There's all kinds of little recorders you can buy. This one has an XY microphone. So it's recording from in stereo from two different directions simultaneously. And I would put it out in my yard when I woke up at like 4 a.m. and go back to bed. And when I went out, I would have sometimes 4 or 5 hours of wonderful morning dawn choruses. And I'd put it in different places in my yard. And I put some of the best recordings up on my website. You could just go to lauraerickson.com. This is the landing page, and you go to miscellany. And under miscellany, one of them is Laura's ambient sound recordings. And then you'll get a page that goes and goes. It's got a few things from like sharp-tailed grouse displaying the cool sounds they make and stuff. But I have some of these recordings. I have one that was 182 minutes and some, yeah, 155 minutes, 174 minutes. Some of them are quite long and they're really cool. Now I can't wait to come back to Arizona so I can get some dawn recordings of species that are not Minnesotan. But during this time, it's been pretty wonderful. That one, when you click on one, it'll give you a page like this, and all the species I recognized in them are tagged. Now, the trick is I'm 69 years old and my hearing's pretty good, but not as good as it used to be. So if you pick out anything I missed, please let me know. Now now it's getting wintry. I've had these guys at my spruce and these guys are all over the place. And I still have my little red squirrel. We've had red poles, but I haven't had any in over a week and I haven't had these guys yet. So I'm still hungry and out there, but it's been wonderful. And pretty soon we'll get to go out birding in traveling kinds of places. Like there's some place somewhere in the United States where I could see all these birds, and happened to in August 2019. We'll get to bird with wonderful people again and have a wonderful time. And I can't wait for that so I can see all these wonderful things. But one thing I've been thinking about as I felt trapped is what Anne Frank wrote. The best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside somewhere where they can be quiet, alone with the heavens, nature, and God. Because only then does one feel that all is as it should be and that God wishes to see people happy amidst the simple beauty of nature. As long as this exists, and it certainly always will, I know that then there will always be comfort for every sorrow, whatever the circumstances may be. And I firmly believe that nature brings solace in all troubles. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been so inspiring hearing all of you, and stay safe and well.
Laura, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Now I
Just,
have to figure out how to
just
stop sharing screen. Oh, stop
hearing your
sharing.
voice
Okay,
and your
back to
stories
normal.
is just something that makes me so happy. So one thing that we want to do, Laura was talking about how birds have meant so much to her this year. And, I think that all of us have a story or two or a reason why birds meant something to us here in 2020. So what we'd like to do, since this is a social, a holiday party, we want to be able to talk with each other. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sending all of us into breakout rooms of about 6 people or so. And we're going to be in these breakout rooms for about 7 to 8 minutes. And what we'd like you to do is to talk about this question that you see on your screen. What did birds mean to you in 2020? And, some of us are extroverts, so like we're all good about, like I am. I mean, I can talk for however long. And some of us are introverted and not wanting to talk too much or stories, but let's just pretend we're around the potluck table and talking with the folks around us and just share a little bit. Don't dominate the conversation, let other people talk, but I'm going to send you out right now. And so I'm going to open up all the rooms and it's going to send you into a breakout room. And then we're going to come back and finish out with a few more things here. Here we go. Welcome everyone as you come back from your breakout room. I hope you had a great time. A little bit of soul time, we all need that. We'll wait till everyone comes back. Looks like we're almost there. All right. Well, I want to introduce our next speaker, and Mary Walker. She's an amazing lady. Not only is she an amazing lady, but she's also the Tucson Audubon board president. And we'd like for Mary to share a few words with us as we get close to wrapping up. Mary, how are you doing? Oh, you're on speaker or on mute. There you go.
There, that ought to do it.
You're good now.
Okay, well, thank you, Luke. And as a lot of you who are on the video today know, Luke has been doing a beautiful job of sort of being the face of Tucson Audubon from with coordinating and leading classes and chats. And we've reached a great number of people all around the country and some outside the country through this. So that's one of those silver linings to the restrictions that we've had about actually getting together in person. So it's been a year of, really adapting to a lot of new realities for all of us and for you. And we're just so thankful for all the effort and support that everyone has put in. Our executive director, and I know very well that he has done just an outstanding job of leadership and keeping things going and keeping the staff supported through difficulties they have had, like everyone else during this time. And he's allowed them, by doing that, to stay creative, as you can tell from many of the programs that were described today. We've seen a lot of creativity coming out in this year where you have to do things a little bit differently. And I also like to thank our board of directors. We have a board of 12 people who are just 100% behind the programs that we have all the time, and also supporting financially Tucson Audubon so that we can keep doing what we need to do. But especially you all, and I think there's more than 100 people here today, for your generous and very constant support, your volunteer hours, and your encouragement of Tucson Audubon during this time. You're really part of our core family, and you inspire us to keep going. So in these troubled times, I've got a little poem here too that I thought was very appropriate, especially today, which is a rainy day here in Tucson. We love it. But this is just an excerpt from a poem called Words to a Grandchild, written by Chief Dan George of the Salish tribe in Canada. So he says, "Heed the days when the rain falls freely. In their grayness lies the seed of much thought. The sky hangs low and paints new colors on the earth. After the rain, the grass will shed its moisture, the fog will lift from the trees, a new light will brighten the sky and play in the drops that hang on all things. Your heart will beat out new gladness if you let it happen." That's a poem that's always inspired me in tough times. So as you celebrate the coming holidays, we invite you to share a new gladness with us that we're thriving through this year, and continuing to share the wonders of nature around us, bringing more people into the fold to join us. So we can all take strength in take gladness in the strength of Tucson Audubon Society, of which you are such a great part. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you so much, Mary. Your leadership of the organization, not only in the challenge days of 2020, but since we started together in 2018, it has been remarkable, and we couldn't have done it without you and the support of our community leaders on the board of directors. I'm gonna wrap up. One word keeps coming to mind today, and the staff probably is thinking, this has been on your mind since day one, Lutz, and that word is communication. We talked on day one about the need to over communicate with each other for a variety of reasons. And you know, to start, it was just to make our operation better, so that we're communicating between the people in the field doing habitat restoration and the people behind desks and working with donors to do the critical fundraising, and everything in between. So it's all that behind the scenes work. It's also work that we do with our partners, and you heard manifesting with the report from Tony this afternoon. All of that work to get invasive species eradication done on broad landscape scales, that doesn't happen without partnerships with the county and federal agencies here in Tucson and Southeast Arizona. You're also hearing about the communications with our external partners through the presentation from Jenny McFarland. So the Disney Conservation Fund, the Purple Martin Conservation Association. We are Tucson Audubon Society in name, a national organization when it comes to our network, and that includes you as well. So communication with all of our community members, our members, our donors, people who stop by and just go for a walk at Sweetwater Wetlands. Those communications, the ways that we share the world of birds and the mission of Tucson Audubon are really key. And then to bring it around to the here and now of 2020, communication is much more than just about success of our operation or building partnerships or staying in touch with you. It really is about surviving these very unique circumstances that we're living in. I know I've seen some of your faces and faces of program participants in other Zoom sessions, and heard your voices when you say just how important it is to have these connections, to have the opportunity to socialize and interact. And we know that the holiday potluck has been a format for Tucson Audubon for years that allows people to do that. So communication has really meant a lot to our community members. It's also meant a lot to me personally and to the staff. If we weren't able to see your faces, hear your voices, receive your feedback, the good and the bad, I think we would be really lost. I know we would be in a much different place, you know, mentally, and you know, it just speaks to how much you lift us up and make the work that we do possible. Because I'll admit, some days it's hard. It's hard to keep moving forward, and in my case, you know, send emails, pour through spreadsheets, you know, have brainstorming sessions. But I know all of you are behind us, and that it just means the world to me. It means the world to all of us here at Tucson Audubon. So I will leave it at that, and I'll say special thanks to our guest today in Laura Erickson. Thanks for joining us, giving me a little touch of the Midwest, which I miss dearly, especially black-capped chickadees. Thank you to Mary for your words, and Luke for being master of ceremonies. Awesome job as usual, and everybody working behind the scenes to make today possible. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great holiday. And if you need anything, just reach out to us. If you want a phone call, email exchange, our virtual door is always open. Talk about birds or anything. So great to see everybody. Thanks for your time today, and we hope to see you again soon. If not before the end of the year, then definitely in 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
holidays,
holidays to you.
Nice
Good to
program.
see
Thank you and
everyone.
happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy
Yeah,
New
Merry
Year.
Christmas, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all.
Holidays.
Happy end of
Take care.
2020.
Bitter New Year.
Yes,
New
happy end
Year.
to 2020. All this because you missed.
All right,
A few
take care
more
all.
weeks.
Happy birding.